Okay, so we should be live. Hopefully all the tech is working correctly. Let me go ahead and play around with the screen real quick. I don't know. What did we agree on? Okay, I think it was this way. So, all right, deep breath. For those of you who don't know, I have a little bit of a fear of speaking. We're gonna do this. I've got a powerful group of ladies joining me. So if you are catching this on live, go ahead and drop where you're tuning in from in the comments. And if you're catching this on replay, go ahead and drop those hashtag replays in the comments. That's gonna help make sure that other women and men can see that this is an event that you're definitely gonna wanna tune into. Because as everyone is funneling into this live, be prepared to hold on to your seats because we are going to have an action-packed powerhouse of an hour where you're bound to be blown away by all of the life-changing insights that everyone is going to share by some of the greatest voices on LinkedIn. So today, I am going to be kicking off this chat with the topic, hustle culture. So hustle culture, I mean, all women should know what hustle culture is. It's that thing that women do to get a seat at the table. It's working 2 times harder than all the other men, 10 times harder than all the other white men just to get a seat at the table. And so that's, early mornings, late night, extensive education, just like everything that we have to do to feel heard, seen. And so I'll be the first to admit that I hustle. Like I hustle hard. And it's taken me quite a bit of time to find a balance for myself. And I'm sure that's the same for like all of the beautiful ladies up on stage right now. And don't get me wrong, like none of us are perfect. We're all a work in progress. But today we have come together to shed insights on some of the most powerful strategies that you can use to own your career. So I am going to try to get Marty to be able to come up on stage when we can figure out the tech issues. So first up, I am going to bring Stephanie. So let me click and try to get her on the big screen. Marty, you might just need to like exit out and then come back in because I'm not sure what's going wrong. Okay, but Stephanie, she is on Next Gen's 30 Under 30 list, is a Forbes under 30 scholar, and is an international speaker who could not speak a lick of English when she moved to this country. She shared a lot on social media about her brutal job search and how she finally successfully landed internships at renowned organizations like Deloitte, JP Morgan. And she even opened her own consulting firm to help others as she was along for the journey. And she's now landed her coveted first job outside of college as an analyst at Google, like the mecca of free lunch, Google. So Stephanie, my question for you today is, what is your advice to college students in terms of landing an internship or like obtaining that coveted first job post-college?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I don't know about every other amazing woman on stage, but I'm super energized. Every time I come on LinkedIn Live, I like to feel the energy. So just to everyone that's on the audience, like let us know if you're energized because I didn't have coffee this morning and I'm already like 100% energized. Anyways, so my answer to that question would be the following. When we go through college, and this is also for a lot of people that are parents right now, right? This is important for you too, because you have kids and you eventually want your kids to go to college and you want to make sure you're giving them the best information possible. So when you're going through the college phase, what's important to understand is that you're not going to go through the 4 years and then try to get a job. That's not how it works, right? So what you want to do is understand that from the first, second semester, third semester, you should be already looking for networking, having your LinkedIn profile ready. You should be already building connections. You should be going to events. I can tell you, when I was a sophomore in college a couple of years ago, I went to like 12 conferences in 1 year. So just to put a little bit of numbers of what that looks like, right? Every month for a full year, I would be out of my house for 5 days. That's around 60 days in an entire year. And what I will be doing is just basically networking. I would apply for every single conference I saw online that was free. They will fly me out for whatever stay, whatever it is that I was doing. I just really wanted to put myself out there. Why? Because number one, I was a first gen. I never had the resources. I never had the people or the guidance or anyone who told me like how to write a resume, how can I write a cover letter. There's many people out there that are in the same space where they don't even know how to do that. And so that's number one, why I started creating my own consulting company. Number two, because a lot of people go through that same space. And if you are in that stage right now where you don't really know what you're doing, it's okay. Right. There's people who have 30 plus years of experience who still don't know what they're doing. It's just a matter of like we don't really figure it out. Right. But what you should be doing is trying to do 1% better every day. And so after you're building networking, going to conferences and all those things, what you should really be doing is utilizing, what we have available. So LinkedIn, right? Joining LinkedIn groups, joining these events, networking with people, trying to get referrals. Literally everything that you see online that applies to you, you should be doing it, because why not? You don't lose anything. And that's how I really got my first pivoted job out of college, after interning while I was in school, because I didn't want to settle. I thought I could do better. I thought I could do more. And as a woman, I feel like I could do so much more, to open the doors for other women, because you have to also think it that way. You're not just opening the door for yourself, but you're also doing it for other women that are coming and are looking up to you. So that's my message to everyone.
Let me take myself off mute. Stephanie, that is such a great message, because not only does it apply to any of the younger people tuning in right now, like you said, it also applies to all the moms in the audience who are about to go through this with their kids. Okay, so definitely drop in the chats if you have any questions for Stephanie. We'll be sure to get back to you. Now, okay, next up on stage is Alicia. Okay, so let me try to be coordinated here and get all of the right stuff up. My goodness. All right. So Alicia, is one of the worst feelings, in my opinion, that a professional can have is to feel stuck.
Absolutely.
And as a former recruiter and the owner of Prepared Careers, you help professionals like get out of that feeling, stop settling in their careers, honoring their boundaries. And so I am dying to know, what do you recommend for the women in this audience, and men? Like, men, I am not throwing any shade on you today, but we're closing out Women's History Month with a bang. So I'm going to be talking specifically about our ladies today. So Alicia, what are your recommendations for how women can move past these feelings of overwhelm so they can get into action to own their careers?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you have that feeling, people, that feeling comes from you not it's just the bad stuff that's in your face and all of these emotions. In order to move past you feeling unstuck, you're going to first have to realize what it is a current job that you don't like. Because I am a really big fan of you being clear on what that is, so you don't run into the same thing that you're trying to get away from, right? So I think it's first having to really hone in and get clear on what it is that you don't like, because that feeling can come from many different things. Like sometimes, folks feel stuck, because they're bored, or people feel stuck because they're in an environment that is not good, right? Or simply you're really ready to move on to that next stage. And so I think it's important first to really hear on why you actually feel unstuck. And then also you want to think about, what is it about this current position do not want to take in to my next role? Because I think a lot of people don't realize that you could be like really great at something, but you don't really enjoy it. And so I think it's really clear to find, okay, I can do these skills very, very well, but what are those skills that I just really don't enjoy doing? And so I think the first two things is, first, to realize what it is about your current career that you don't like, and also start to figure out what it is that you actually do like. And so I'm a big fan of not just you knowing what's wrong, but to start to actually make the steps to move towards what it is that you want. And that's where that feeling of unstuck will start to leave, because now all of your energy and time is not into, I hate this job, it sucks, I want something else. But now all of that energy and focus is now you actually trying to find something else. And so I tell people, the moment that you shift the focus to start to actually make those steps, that feeling slowly like leaves you. And I tell people, if you are in a particular job, you know, you hate or you're bored or whatever, the more steps that you take to find something else, the more that actual work day won't seem as stressful, right? Because, you know, wait a minute, I'm not enjoying it, but I also know that I have a plan and I am almost out of this door. And so I think it's really important to know that that feeling of being stuck is not always a bad thing. That is like that little bell or that little alarm on the inside of your mind saying, girl, it is time to go. And so don't allow that stuck feeling to have you feel like, oh my God, this is horrible, because we all have felt that, but allow that to like really drive you towards something else.
I'm eventually going to get the mute right. So I love that tip, because it's true. Like, nobody ever wants to feel in a negative space, but when you do have negative feelings, it typically is because somehow your values or your priorities are out of whack. And so even though being in a place you don't want to be sucks, it gets you closer to knowing who you are, what you value, what your priorities are, so you can own those non-negotiables, so you can confidently move forward in your job search. So Alicia, love all those tips.
And look, I want to add this one thing. You know, we are really living in a really amazing time when you can do anything. Like, there is a kid like online, I think he shows his toys. I think it's, and he's making like $26 million a year, showing how much he loves playing with his toys. And so I tell people, like, if this was ever a time to do what it is that you want to do, the time is now, because the opportunities are there. So even though you feel stuck, that does not mean you are stuck. So
yes, I love that. And shout out to Ryan's mom, who follows him around with that camera, because they are making bank now. But could you please reduce the price on those like mixer like toy things, because it is insane to pay $50 for a bunch of toys that are going to get thrown away. All right, so mom rant over. Next up is Lezlie. So let me get coordinated here, Lezlie. Let me find your little blurby thing. All right, so Lezlie from Resume Leslie's. Okay, so I adore Lezlie. First of all, let me put that out there. I've collaborated with her in the past. I love everybody on this stage, but Lezlie is the woman who helped me overcome my fear of doing these lives. And so one of the ways, one powerful strategy for advancing is your career is by working with other women, collaborating with other women. You see us all collaborating here today. That is possible for you too. So without any further ado, Lezlie is a career happiness advocate. Whoa, what a concept there. Happiness is so deep. And she's got a background in sales, college services. So her career is like anything other than linear. She's currently the director of RV or Job Exchange and the owner of Resume Lezlie. So she is busy helping people just like you find remote roles. And so, Lezlie, as a full-time RVer, how do you recommend women interested in remote roles advocate for themselves and specifically find out roles with this flexibility?
Yes, that is an excellent question, Teegan. Thank you so much for having me. Again, I will just say, oh, it sounds like we got some echo from somebody who just joined.
Oh, let me mute her. My bad.
There we go. Awesome, awesome, cool, thanks. So Thank you for having me on. And let me just say again that you seem like such a natural on video. So even though I might have been the one to invite you on and overcome, you know, your fear of public speaking, you have gone so far since then. And I just love watching all of your success. So that's really cool. I also wanted to say, I think it was, oh gosh, am I going to get the name wrong? Alicia, there we go. Alicia just spoke and she mentioned that if ever there was a time to do exactly what you want to do, that time is now. And I totally agree with that. And I think it applies very strongly to remote work. So as Teegan was saying, I am a full-time RVer. I have been a full-time RVer since the summer of 2017, which means I have been a digital nomad, fully remote for almost 5 years. So I have a lot of experience in the remote work space. And for anyone who is looking to get into remote work, maybe hasn't done a lot of remote work previously, except for maybe what had to happen during the pandemic, I really want to give you hope. For anyone watching right now, if you'll drop into the comments and let us know if remote work is one of your goals, if you're excited about remote, if you're already working remotely, anything like that, let us know in the comments so we can see kind of what people are thinking about remote work. In order to target remote work and really advocate for yourself as a remote worker, I think the first really important thing to do is to translate all of your sort of job search and career communications. So that has to do with your resume and your cover letters. It has to do with your LinkedIn. It has to do with the way you communicate in networking and the way you communicate in interviews. And basically, that all starts by going back and reconsidering your job descriptions and figuring out for yourself what parts of those can be identified or sort of creatively described with remote work keywords or skills. So sometimes, even if you've never worked remotely, you may have worked within a company that required you to collaborate with people in different locations for that company, different offices, things like that. And that has a lot to do with remote work, because even though you were maybe sitting in your office, you were having to communicate remotely with someone who was off site. If you're a project manager and you've had to coordinate and manage various people on a project, some of them are external vendors or contractors, that is a lot of remote work and remote communication as well. So I think the first step is really going back to your job descriptions, putting on your sort of creativity hat and going, okay, what did I really do that touched on some of these remote work skills? And along with that, it also includes making sure you understand the technology that's out there that allows people to work remotely. Technology for, you know, pulling people together for team meetings remotely, project management, customer relationship management software, anything that has to do with digital communications. If you've used those in your work, great. If you haven't, a lot of these software and programs allow for free short trials, so you can get in there and play around with the software, figure out what it does, so you can get in there and familiarize yourself that way. You can also read articles that compare two different project management softwares or two different CRMs, and you can learn about how they operate and function differently that way. Then you can include some of that communication in your resume, cover letter, networking, interviewing, things like that, to let people know, hey, I may not have held a fully remote position before, but I am familiar with these remote work technologies. So I think that is really important to translate your communications. And then finally, getting to actually targeting, really being strategic in targeting the companies that are on the forefront of remote work. Companies who are listed out there in lists of, hey, these 30 companies are the top hiring for fully remote roles, or these companies are big supporters of work from anywhere. So if you choose to maybe travel around, be a nomad like me, you might want to look at companies that aren't just remote work open, but that are open to work from anywhere, because some companies are a little hesitant about that moving around piece and others are very open-minded. So I think those are really important. And the final thing that I will say is don't be afraid to create a role for yourself. Now, this is not something that's going to work for every person in every situation. These are going to be very few and far between, usually situations where you would have that opportunity. But I speak from experience. I actually just recently created this director of the RVR job exchange role for myself. I saw the RVR job exchange, which is just rvrjobexchange.com if anyone's interested. But I saw that out there. I was familiar with the organization and I saw that they didn't have anybody leading it, and that they weren't building it to what I knew could be like the heights of its success. So a few months ago, I reached out with a whole pitch. I spent probably at least a month researching, figuring out what I thought I could do and bring to that particular role. And I reached out and I said, hey, you've got this service, this product that that's not quite growing. Here is a very sort of well thought out, detailed list of the things I think I could do if you put me in charge of it. And that actually worked. They liked my ideas. We talked a few more times and then they brought me on board. So even though that might not be, certainly isn't a strategy that you're going to try for every single, job that you want, but leave yourself open, keep an open mind to that idea that, hey, if you are really interested in a company or an organization, and they don't have a role that's exactly a fit for you, but you see an opening or an opportunity, don't be afraid to make that happen for yourself, or to at least try and reach out and talk to someone about that. So as far as remote work, it's all fairly new, and we are all sort of helping it develop and watching it develop. There are a lot of opportunities out there, and I just want to encourage anyone who's interested, which I saw plenty in our chat, people talking about how interested they are in remote. So that's fantastic, and I just really want to encourage you and give you hope and say that it's definitely possible. And as Alicia said, if there's anything, any time to do what you want to do, that time is now, so go out there and do it.
Okay, I don't know about anybody else, but if creating your own job doesn't feel like a power move, I don't know what is. Because when you see an opportunity, a gap, an area where a company could benefit from your unique secret sauce, and you put in the research and create a proposal, a project plan together. Now you may get a no and did all that work for no reason, but you could use that project in your portfolio to show what you can do for other interviews. But there's a chance that they may say yes. And that's why I'm a huge advocate of diversifying your job search strategy, because everybody who's talked about so far, Stephanie says, get yourself out there, put yourself out there. Alicia says, focus on your values and your priorities and really what you want to do moving forward. And Lezlie says, advocate for yourself, go after what you want and word it that way. It's all, you see how all these pieces are coming together, and it's because they work. Ladies, I know we juggle so many things, but if you spend your time where you can get the highest ROI for that time, you will own your career and you will be unstoppable. And so next up, I want to bring Marti to the stage because hallelujah, we got her working. Now, y'all, listen to this. Marti, who I've had the pleasure of meeting in person, she is a global keynote speaker, a career decoder, and the author of Activate Your Agile Career. So she focuses on the future of work, the hybrid workplace, and career agility, a topic all of us need to be prepared for. So with change as her defining influence, which is a really scary topic for a lot of us, she has the strategy to flex rather than to fade, something that often happens to us women, to remain relevant, not only in corporate America, but as entrepreneurs like the majority of us. So, Marti, how do you encourage other women to tap into their spidey senses? Yeah, I got a spidey mask, everybody. Shout out to my kid. To really figure out what these emerging trends are so they're not caught off guard when a company makes a decision, or even better, position themselves for their next opportunity for really what their company needs.
Sure, thanks for that lovely introduction. And I had to figure out the technology today because I have been a technologist and a futurist for years. So I was committed to figuring this out. So I'm so happy to have, most things work when you reboot. So that's the story today. But speaking of a spidey sense for emerging trends, I gave a keynote speech at a global design conference, and someone wrote an article about me and said, Marti has a spidey sense for emerging trends. And I said, that's a good LinkedIn heading, because when you are a futurist and a career decoder, it's important to know what's going on. I wrote a book about career agility. It is dependent really on three things. I call it, you can bring your future to your present with doing these three things. You start with challenging your assumptions. That's the overarching. And then it's really you're challenging your DNA. And so the D stands for disrupting the current model. Look at what happened the past 2 years. The current model changed. Look at what Leslie's doing. The current model has evolved for her. So that's really disrupting the model. And then it's noticing the trends and the signals. A signal is something that really is in the background for about 10 years before it becomes a trend. So most of us are not signal watchers. We're more trend watchers. But there's a lot of people that just let the trends go right over. And the next piece, the A in DNA, is to act. So challenge your DNA. It doesn't matter how creative you are, how great you are. And I'll give you one example. I've worked as a tech executive for a number of years, a CMO, director of marketing, all of that before becoming a workplace futurist. And there was a time in my career that I did not pay attention to what was going on around me. We were required by a Fortune 100 company. It's what all of us had been working for. I had been the chief marketer on that staff. So I'd been largely responsible for helping to pitch and to help close that deal. But like a lot of women, and I want to point this out to women, I stayed on the task of making sure that the PR and the marketing and all that stuff was going after the announcement for the acquisition. And guess what all my fellow colleagues were doing on the management team? They were negotiating their roles in the new company. They negotiated by hopping on a plane, getting to know people, really doing the socialization that was necessary for them to have a really key role at the acquiring organization. So when we got acquired and the people from the home company came to talk to us, they gave me an offer that was less than, and they gave me a title that was less than. Here I have been a VP, a chief marketer, all these things, and they're giving me a low title. And so I got my expert negotiating skills going, and I realized my miss and what I had done. And so over a period of a couple of days, I was willing to walk away. I wasn't going, to do that. I was willing to walk away. I was getting money from the event anyway. I was willing to walk away. And then I just said, this is, not acceptable. He thought I was aggressive. And I said, this isn't acceptable. I go, it's interesting the level of effort that I've put into this, and this is not an acceptable offer. So within 2 days, I had $40,000 more on the table on the offer. I had the title I wanted, and I was able to move into it. And I asked the guys afterwards, it wasn't that they were shutting me out. It's just that they somehow knew how to do this, and I didn't know how to do this. So if I would say anything to women listening to this is pay attention to the trends that are going on around you. Don't always keep your head down just because you're doing a great job. Pay attention and try to carve out your niche for what you're doing next. That is what career agility is all about. So that's my example, and I'd like to pass it along because I know we have lots more people in the mix here.
Whoa. Okay. I think every single woman watching this right now, like the fire coming up in their bellies, because we've all had this happen to us. We've seen men get better titles, get better salaries, because we just didn't ask or didn't know to ask. We thought like they're just going to do the right thing. In business, people don't just do the right thing. They do what's right for their bottom line most of the time. And so, ladies, we have to speak up. Closed mouths don't get fed, and I do not care who calls you aggressive. So, we need to be, because you're not going to do the right thing. So here I am. My ass is in your chair, and it's going to keep coming in your chair until you do the right thing. And Redford Salmon, if you're watching right now, he will attest. I was a thorn in his side until he gave me the opportunities I wanted. Very much so, to Leslie's point. If you are internally in a company and you see an opportunity, like not only if you're thinking that, hey, I want to advance, I want to own, advance, or pivot in my career, it may be possible to do that in your internal company. Ask for those stretch assignments. Continue to follow up with one-on-ones. Have a SWOT analysis ready for that one-on-one. Have an agenda ready for your leader if they don't have a structured agenda to focus on your career advancement, your career agility, like Marty was just talking about. And so, okay, let me get off this wagon because I just felt that. Okay, oh, this is perfect. I just saw who was up next. So Anna's up next, and she is an executive who has teams that she develops. So let me do her introduction real quick. So Anna has an executive background in global learning and development. I mean, ladies, how many of us care about that? Pretty much all of us. She leads DE&I efforts for EY Germany, which is so dope, and is the founder of Workmazing. As a child war refugee, she could have been written off, but pushed through preconceived notions about what was possible for her. So, Anna, what advice do you have for other women who have their potential written off by society, which is complete crap? And what tips do you have for women who want to get more involved in the DE&I space, or, even at the executive level?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. So, yeah, happy to share my insights and maybe also a bit of my experience. So, what I have learned is that when you don't have a traditional background, and it can be your ethnic background, or you may be the only woman in the office, you obviously face obstacles. But there are also people who want to support you. They just don't know how to support you. And I had to learn this the hard way. So, for example, similar to Marty's story, also me in my early career, I was underpaid because I did not negotiate well, or I did not negotiate at all. Let's put it that way. And so what happened is that later I realized, that people who were maybe bringing or providing even less value than me were paid more. And so what I did, I put my head down, and I worked even harder just to prove that I was worthy of getting more responsibilities and getting a raise. And eventually, after a year and a half, I was called to the office of my manager, and he told me, hey, I'm really seeing the value that you bring. And he gave me a 40% raise without me asking for it. And so what that really taught me is, so he is a white man, so he was willing to support me, but I could have asked for that raise a year earlier, and he probably would have given it to me. So what I did is I just ignored all the signs that I saw around me, and I thought that my hard work would save me, but that's not how it works. So really, your work, of course, needs to speak for you, but it's not the only thing that needs to speak for you. It's yourself who needs to speak up and to advocate for yourself. And so now that I'm coaching other people, especially those who don't have a traditional background in overcoming, these challenges that society maybe has put in front of them, I've developed a model that I call the flow to brand formula. And it's all about positioning yourself in a way so that you come across as your authentic self, but you also help people see who you are. And so in my work with people, I've identified 4 inner blockers that most people have, when they are developing their career. And one of those blockers, I call it the hard worker blocker. So that's the one that I'm still having. I have to work twice as hard as everybody else just to prove my value. And it's also what you mentioned in the beginning as well. And so when you have that blocker, it's really difficult to see your strengths, for example, in the right light, So for example, I used to neglect a lot of strengths and talents that come naturally to me because they feel like play, they don't feel like hard work. And so when I'm using those strengths, I don't feel that I'm providing value. And so I really had to learn, to tune in and listen to my, to my inner genius and to say, hey, this is your talent. And just because it doesn't come hard to you doesn't mean, that you shouldn't be using it, but this is actually the way to go. And then once we enter that flow, is really about helping others see us in that light as well. So for example, the mistake that I did is that this inner blocker of hard work was preventing me from creating relationships with others because I was so focused on getting the work done. And so people did not actually think, oh, she's working that hard, this is why she doesn't have time. What they perceived is she's not interested in connecting to me, because I was not the one reaching out. And so I think it's also about helping others see who we are and really make that conscious decision, how we want to be seen and perceived by them. And then the third level, what I call the aligned you, after that, uncovering the real you, then getting clear on the social you, how you come across to others. Then the third level is the aligned you, where the real you, who you are without your inner limitations, matches how you see yourself and how others see you. And when you have that, then you actually tap into that superpower that you have that helps you really build a successful career. So that's my answer to your first question, how to overcome the obstacles that society poses on us. And to your second question, all the women who want to get involved in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space is what I have observed a lot. There are a lot of women and men also who are passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so they put in a lot of time and effort in promoting this agenda in their company, which is great, but they miss the opportunity to also ask the recognition for all those efforts in their company. And so what they fail to realize that often, they are doing their company a service, because if a company cares about diversity, equity, and inclusion, you're helping them develop a culture, you're helping them develop an employer brand so they can attract great candidates more easily. And because you are doing all of that, that should be also part of your promotion case. It should be part of your discussion when you are asking for a raise, when you are asking for a lot of for more responsibilities. And a lot of people that I see in the workplace are so passionate about this that they really fail to recognize the value that they bring. And so they just go on and on and on without actually claiming their own value about it.
Whoa, okay. In the beginning of this, when I said, hold on to your seats, like everybody needs to go back and watch this on replay. Like as soon as this is over, because she just dropped some amazing gems. Let me just sum it up real quick. Perception is reality, not only for yourself, but also for the way others see you as well. And so those 4 things that she just talked about, holy cow, we all need that. And so, Anna, we had Emily ask an amazing question. So I'm gonna ask you to answer it. So she was asking you, how long do you advocate for yourself before accepting that the time is to move on?
Well, I think everyone, you need to answer that question to yourself. But what I would say is, if you advocate for yourself and you get vague answers and plans, then I see it as a signal, to go away, let's say, as soon as and as fast as you can. If you get a concrete action plan, and you actually see that you are going to be assigned to projects, to tasks that are going to get you there. So if your manager and leader is really involved in designing that action plan with you, then I'd say, it's a good sign that they are taking it seriously. But I've seen a lot of people, advocating for themselves and then getting some, next time, because now we can't, and so forth. And if there is not a clear and strategic plan behind that, then I would say, that's a sign, look somewhere else.
Oh, I totally agree. All right. So next up, which moves perfectly into what Stacey's going to be talking about. So Stacey has spent the majority of her career in recruitment and TA leadership roles. She's currently the associate principal at Korn Ferry, and she leads their career coaching efforts. So often, job seekers, like we just talked about, get into this space where they know their company is not going to do right by them, is not going to give them room for advancement. It's time to start talking to recruiters. Or in Stacey's current position, it's time to start talking to internal mobility experts to really advocate and get that actionable plan stepped in place. So, Stacey, I'm so excited to bring you up next because I've got a question that you, I think, are going to be perfect to answer, because you are a recruiter. Well, you were a recruiter and you are a coach and you are a team leader. So what are your powerful strategies for effectively working with recruiters to not only get the job you want today, but also to take ownership of your career, to like maintain those relationships? So when you're ready to make that next move and maybe your current organization isn't on board with that, you can quickly pivot so you don't waste any time.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I just want to say, hey, thank you so much for having me today. Really excited to be here with all these great women. It's an honor. So thank you for inviting me. So I love this topic because, as you mentioned, I spent over 20 years in talent acquisition. And now as a career coach, I'm constantly talking about recruiters and how they have to be a part of your job search strategy always. And you want to stay in touch with them, which I'm going to go into a little bit more. But I think sometimes recruiters kind of get a bad rap, and they might be kind of seen as the enemy or this gatekeeper that's trying to keep people out, which they are not. They're just trying to find the best fit for the job that they are recruiting for. So, again, they are not the enemy at all. In fact, just the opposite. They can be your biggest champion. You kind of want to be best friends with them because so much can come from that, whether you're working with them on a specific role or you have a relationship where they're calling you about roles maybe before they're even posted. But I put together just a list of a few great tips on how to work with recruiters and get the most out of that relationship. One, please keep your LinkedIn profile updated. So I'm still shocked when I work with a client of how many people either don't have a LinkedIn profile but I'm going to assume because we're on a LinkedIn platform here that everybody here has a profile. Please keep that updated and have information in there. Help them help you. So help them find you. So make sure that your profile is optimized. There's courses out there. There's a ton of things you can look at. You can work with a coach, whatever it is, but making sure that your profile is kept up to date. Also, you'll see people that have their experience, but their last job or their current job, is not on there and what they're doing. So please make sure that that is updated. So when they're searching, you show up in their search. And then if you're going to look for a recruiter yourself, which I always will recommend as well, you want to try to find recruiters that are in your industry. It is not going to do you any good if you are working in finance and you start connecting with IT recruiters. So it's not more, it's definitely quality over quantity here. And you want to stay in your vertical. So most recruiters are going to specialize in some form or fashion. And so you want to find them in your industry. Reach out. When you reach out to a recruiter, you want to give them the highlights. Either, I always hear of a couple of different things happening. One, somebody just fires off their resume and says, hey, can we talk? They're not going to stop and read that right then. Give them something to work with. Give them some highlights of your career, why they need to be talking to you. I know one of the things that I hear a lot is, well, the recruiters don't respond, whatever it might be. Understand that they are crazy busy. So every job posting that's out there is, they're probably getting 250, 300, if not more now in this wild time of a lot of people making changes to their career. So they're getting hit with a lot. They cannot possibly respond to 300 people. But if you're reaching out to them, again, give them something to work with. Give them some highlights. Make yourself stand out. I'm talking to recruiters all the time, Korn Ferry, or largest recruitment firm in the world. And so I am constantly talking to recruiters and had the pleasure before I moved over into coaching full-time to lead several recruitment teams. And so I stay in touch and I'm constantly talking to them so I can share the best info with with my clients or anybody that's asking. But anyways, they also say follow up. You are not going to annoy them. Give it a little time. You don't want to be sending a message every single day, but they do not mind the follow-up because, again, they're busy. Maybe they intend to respond to you and they get called into a meeting, and you know how that goes. A week later, we've gone through all these meetings. So, give them an extra little bump. So the other thing is, once you are connected to a recruiter, maintain that relationship. Check in with them. Even if you've got the job, of your dreams, we never know what's going to happen, right? Especially in this world, things change. So you want to stay in touch, keep that relationship going. I've known people to work with the same recruiter through multiple roles. So you definitely want to keep the relationship and, let them know if changes are happening with you. If you've made a change, again, just staying in touch, shooting them a quick note. Doesn't mean you have to stop and have a conversation every time. Just send an update. And my other thing is, if a recruiter reaches out to you, respond. They will remember who responded. If what they're reaching out to you, if it's a role that you're not interested in or you're not ready to make a move, whatever it might be, respond with that. Thanks for reaching out. Right now I'm in a good place. I'm not looking to make a move. Maybe I could recommend somebody. Perfect. Keep the relationship there. Keep them in your network. And then one of the last things really here is when you're having a conversation with a recruiter, you're getting ready for that, make sure you prep similar to an interview. I think the biggest thing here, and Alicia touched on this, I think a couple of people have touched on this, know what you want to do. So when you get on the phone with them, know what it is that you are looking to do. Don't make them try to guess and figure out what box you're going to go in. And be honest, right? Thinking about the environment that you want to work in. Do you want a large company, small company? Are you looking at a startup? Are you looking at Google? Whatever that might be, but making sure that you understand what it is that you are looking for. And again, honesty is best, right? We don't want to waste anyone's time and your own time. So, again, I know recruiters, sometimes they get a bad rap for not responding all the time or whatever it might be. But again, if you look at some of the numbers and what they're working with, they just can't. In fact, it was funny. I like to give this example. Working at Korn Ferry, I thought, I've got an in. I had a client that I thought, oh, you know what? You need some help in oil and gas. That's where they're looking. So I thought, I'm an internal. I'll use my little internal magic and I'll send his resume off. And we didn't hear back. And it wasn't for a specific position. It was just like, hey, here's a great candidate. Should you have something? And then back in the day when we were in the office, I walked into the break room and happened to be the head of search was in there getting his coffee. And I said, I sent this email and I sent a resume over and I haven't ever heard anything back. And he goes, we get at least 100 unsolicited resumes a day. So I was somewhere in the 100. And at the time, he just did not have the position. So a lot of times they're going to respond when they've got a position that you're going to be a fit for. But again, just to get in their network, get connected to them, reach out. And I saw a question pop up. So yeah, you want to keep your message short and sweet. Give them the highlights. Why are you a good fit? Real quick. Do not do a full resume run through. I started my career here and then I went here and then I went there. They're going to see your resume. So you definitely just want to give the highlights and show them that you've done a little bit of research, right? You didn't just see a title and go, I'm the best project manager there is, and fire it off, right? So why are you going to be the best project manager for this particular company, this particular role that they're working on? So that's just one way. But again, definitely keep it short and sweet. They don't want to read these huge messages, nor will they, quite honestly. So anyway, I think relationships, it's all about the networking, and just please make sure recruiters are included in that. They are not the enemy. They are trying to find the best candidate, the best fit. And they want to work with those people. So.
Oh, I could not agree more on all of this, Stacey. Recruiters are busy, and at the end of the day, they serve their clients, which is the hiring manager. So give them the high level information of, this is what I truly want. Back to Alicia's point, back to Marti's point, back to Anna's point, back to Leslie's point. You have to know yourself, what you really want. So that way, when they do have a role, this is the person, they will remember you. It's I can't remember what I ate yesterday for lunch, but I can remember, I know that one person, I may not remember the person's name, but I can search for it and find it, that person really wants this, has this really random thing that they know how to do, that now this hiring manager has these unrealistic expectations for me to find this purple squirrel. And lo and behold, I know that purple squirrel, because it's all about building relationships. And if you can share your story in a concise way that resonates with other people, they will remember you. And on top of that, if you do kind things like following up with thank you notes, giving referrals, hey, I'm not interested at this moment, but here's a referral for you, they will absolutely hands down remember you. Not only recruiters, hiring managers, peers, just anyone in general. Kindness goes so far when it comes to your career. And with that in mind, next up, I have another Anna. Okay, so Anna came to the States, the United States, with 2 suitcases and a whole lot of dreams. She openly talks about struggles of a non-linear career path and the loneliness of rejection, and how to get taken seriously in corporate America. For all the ladies in the comments right now, if you have not felt that you have always been able to get the influence that you believe that you should have the capacity to do, because to the other Anna's point, maybe people didn't think that you were open to making connections and just kept your head down because you were working so hard. The perception and the reality. Go ahead and drop a 1 in the comments right now. Like, nobody will know what we're talking about except us. Drop a 1 in the comments if you ever felt that maybe you weren't getting the type of influence that you wanted in corporate America. Because so many of us have felt that way. And if we can admit it, others can admit it too. So, Anna, how do you advise people on getting that influence? I mean, you've been a project manager, you've worked in HR, you've been an interpreter, you have done so many different things that have really required effective cross collaboration. So how do you get other people to do that? And I'm going to ask this because you do have an MBA, even though you don't put it next to your name. Do you think that women, and often minority women, are some of the most educated women, Black women in particular, are some of the most educated people in America because maybe we feel that to be taken seriously in corporate America, we have to have these initials next to our name, these extra credentials that actually get someone to pay attention to us? So I'm going to let you take it away. Take it to any place you see fit. Oh, wait, hold on. We can't hear you. Unmute. What? Are you muted?
Okay.
Oh, I can hear you now. Okay. Whoa, hold on. Look at all these 1s in the comments. Okay, while you're talking, I'm going to share all these 1s in the comments because this means that the topic you're talking about right now, people care about.
Woohoo! Okay, first of all, thank you very much for having me on this call. I'm a fan of all these women. I'm really happy to be here. Yes, as some of you know, I'm an immigrant. I'm a first generation graduate from college. Like, I come from a very humble background. And I'm also a first generation in corporate jobs and, of course, corporate America. And what I would say in terms of influence is about visibility. What I want to take away from this is, as everybody else said, you are your own advocate. Like, don't be that invisible leader. Don't be that invisible leader. Make sure that you go on your own one-on-one calls and that you have an agenda. Keep a document and keep track of all the things that you're doing. Have these conversations with your manager. Don't keep it to yourself. I am an introvert. I was the girl in the corner, quiet. I wouldn't speak up in meetings. I always thought, I didn't have anything to contribute. And I also have, an accent because I'm an immigrant. So I always felt like, oh, I'm going to pronounce something wrong, or people are not going to take me seriously, or they're going to think that I'm not smart enough and things like that. Because I have all these things happening to me before. So I would say to women, make sure that you're advocating. And like somebody else mentioned before, but you advocate for how long? Advocate, make sure that you are keeping that track. If you feel like people are not taking you seriously, then it's time to move on. It's time to look somewhere else, right? And when you come to like my idea of coming into HR, for me, it was all about belonging. And, Anna, my friend here, she talks about that. For me, it's not just about the whole DEI. You have to feel that belonging. You have to feel like you are a part of a team. You have to feel like your ideas, you are being seen and heard, right? That's the reason why I went to HR, because I wanted a seat at the table. I want to be a part of those conversations. But you don't necessarily need to go into HR to feel like, you feel like you belong. You feel like people, give you credit and all that. So in that regard, I do feel like, women, sometimes we feel like we need the credentials. We need the validation. We need to show to people that, oh, yeah, I have the degree, or I have the credential, I have this or that. So please take me seriously. Sometimes, I'm an advocate for learning. So I feel like, if you want to learn, if you want to get into higher education, get an MBA, get whatever you want, go for it, because it's going to make you feel good, right? If that's going to make you feel good, go for it. But I don't think for certain positions necessarily you need to get a master's degree, for example. I know people who got a master's degree, went to school for 2 years, and then they end up getting a job that didn't even need a master's degree. And I've seen a lot of big companies now dropping the education like the requirements, right? It's still like, oh, it might be a nice to have, but it's not a requirement anymore. So before you get into, debt and things like that, can you afford it? Do you want to work part-time while you go to school, or you want to work full-time and do school part-time? Is there like a scholarship or a program? I know, coming from HR, that some companies, they have education programs that they help employees pay for tuition. If something that you want to do and is a company that you like and you see yourself growing and maybe becoming a manager there, because of course there are always policies that you may need to stay with the company longer because you are in that program, go for it. Like, if you want the higher education, go for it. But make sure that you are thinking about, okay, how is this going to make me grow? Is this going to help my career? Or I just think I need a master's degree to do a certain profession. You don't. Most of the time you don't, unless, of course, you want to be a lawyer, a doctor, a scientist, a librarian, and things like that. Some professions, if you're changing careers, they might require the higher education for you to be able to do the job. But most professions don't. What I want the takeaway here to be is, do your research. Talk to people in the field, informational interviews, talking to people, however you call it. Networking is a conversation. So please reach out to people before you leap. That's what I always recommend to people who come to me talking about career change. Always do your research. Don't go from one job you don't like to another job you don't like. That's the main one here. And do it for the right reasons, right? I always like to say, you are your chief career officer, right? You need to advocate for yourself. Don't wait for somebody else to see your value. If you want to get the degree, gain the knowledge for yourself, and you can afford it, and you think it's going to help your career, go for it. But the whole takeaway of all of this that I want to say is, you are the best investment you can make. Invest in yourself.
I love that. And so I am going to bring all of these amazing ladies up on stage, and thank you all. Oops, Marty, let me mute you again. And thank you all for joining me, because Women's History Month, it brings up a lot of feelings. And one of the things that it brings up for me is that not all women are treated the same. And so I know we're running a little over, but I just want to end on this note. Not all women are treated the same. And so we've talked to individuals coming from different backgrounds who automatically make it more challenging for them. And so as women, we need to empower each other. We need to build each other up. We need to support each other, because when one person shines, we all shine. Someone else shining does not dim your light. Learn from them. Execute their strategies that have been successful to get you to get to where you're at. Because at the end of the day, we are not each other's competition. We are here to support each other and to grow with each other. And so all of you beautiful ladies on stage, thank you so much for joining me. If you want to, add anything else before we tune out, go ahead, take the mic. I'm so grateful to each of you.
I'm just wowed by your energy. So this is all I can say. This
isn't coffee. It's chocolate milk. So the sugar, it's hot chocolate. The sugar helps. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me. For everyone tuning in, I mean, we had a couple hundred people. We had over 300 people registered. The link did not properly work. So some of the people came in late because the event wasn't actually working. But I'm going to have my VA make sure that every single person who RSVP'd to the event gets a copy of it so they can get this invaluable insight that you all shared today. And for everyone who was tuning in, I encourage you to follow these ladies up here on this stage, to engage with their content. You will learn so much. Not only will you learn, you will gain a community, because everybody has their own following. Everybody has their tribe. And as women, as people, We all need our tribe. So thank you, tribe, and everyone who showed up today, because you are an extension of our tribes. You are a part of our tribes, for supporting us, for supporting each other. And so now I encourage you all to go and implement this actionable advice that you were given today. Massively implement it so you can own your careers. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.